Looks like I'm live. Slightly nerve-wracking because this is my first live stream in a long time. Well, my first formal live stream in a long time. So, welcome. Hey, ladies. Today we are talking about Black women setting unapologetic boundaries in the workplace. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think this is, relevant no matter where you are. Like, boundaries are a key part of life, but I want to talk about it in the workplace because I feel like yes, anytime you set a boundary, it feels very high stakes. But I definitely want us to be comfortable doing in the workplace because this is really us as Black women a lot of stress because we don't feel comfortable setting those boundaries. So if you're here, let me know in the comments. I would love to see you say hello. If you don't know me, this is our first time meeting, engaging, whatever it may be. My name is Mercedes Swan. I am the career love coach, and I'm on a mission to build a community of highly ambitious, amazing, beautiful Black women who are really stepping out boldly to work on their careers, build businesses, and build lifestyles they absolutely love, and what I call the Black woman bliss era. And I'm starting to do live streams each weekday after work at 6 o'clock. It's going to be called the clock out, okay? Because we're clocking out of work. Hey, Dr. Melissa Patton. Hey, girl. Hey. And so I just want this to be a space for community for us to talk about the topics that we're really dealing with in the workplace. And what I heard a couple weeks ago was that we need help with setting boundaries. So I wanted to do this live. I'm glad that you're here. Hey, Tiffany, welcome in, ladies. I'm so excited you're here. So before we get a little bit started, I just want to create this warm, inviting space for us. So let me know in the comments, what's one thing that you're planning to do this weekend to celebrate, to take a moment for self-care, whether that's reflection or just to kind of fill up your cup a little bit. Because of course, if we're setting boundaries, we're having challenges at work where we feel like we need to really set those boundaries. Okay, we need some self-care. So I'm going to a celebration dinner this weekend with my fiance because I quit my job. Your girl quit her job, okay? And so we're going out to dinner to celebrate and a couple of other things. Hey, Natasha, welcome. Love to see y'all here. I'm so excited. Okay, so as you all are sharing what you're doing for self-care this weekend, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an intro, and I'm going to do that by sharing a story. So if you haven't heard the story, I've told this story quite a bit out there on the internet, whatever. But we're talking about boundaries, right? So if you're just joining, we're talking about boundaries. And I set my very first boundary very early. Yes, for the mani-pedi. Okay, keep telling me in the comments. I need to focus, right? I'm just gonna continue to be distracted by the comments. So my very first boundary was in very early in my career. I'm not putting any employers out there, okay? But it was very early in my career, and I was truly putting in the work to change systems, really add value to the organization. I was doing thank you. I was doing really great, awesome things to just what I felt were transformational for the organization. The very first, the very best things that were really shifting how we operated, being strategic. This is in human resources, by the way, right? So I was like, your girl's doing everything right. We're doing it. So I was feeling good about myself, right? And I was also taking on a lot of responsibility, and I mean like a lot. Like I was doing a large portion of the HR department's work, all different areas. I was a generalist, right? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm doing all these things, right? So I'm going to submit a case, right? Because I know how much value I'm giving to this organization. I know how much work I'm putting in. I know also how much money I'm saving this organization and how much my work is actually contributing to additional revenue, even though I was in human resources. So I was like, no worries. No worries. I will put my case together. I will submit this. I will talk about all the great things I've done, my accomplishments, and why what I'm getting paid right now is not in alignment with what I should be getting paid. And so what I ended up doing is I submitted that case. It was a middle. Oh, yay. Thank you. Hi, Nicole. So I am getting all distracted by the comments. Okay, so I'm coming back. Okay, there's the ADHD for you, okay? So I submitted this whole case. I did everything, and I was like, don't worry. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to actually just wait for the correct, plan for when performance evaluations happen and the raises are given. Don't worry about it. So, girl, I was on a work trip, and in that role, work trips were not typical, right? So I was going on my way to kind of help this organization with goals, things that we were doing, blah, blah, blah. And during that work trip, I just got a different and a change in my paycheck, right? And I was like, what is this? I have no idea what's going on. Because nobody told me anything. I just got my paycheck, and it was a different paycheck. But once I did the math, I'm in HR, and I was like, 2080, blah, blah, blah. This isn't right. This is not right. And so I went and I ended up looking, at my paycheck and whatever. And I realized that it was a raise, but it was not the raise that I asked for. I was still in the work trip when I found that out. Girl, it's a wrap. I was in the middle of presentations and everything else. I was pissed. And then I also had to travel back with my supervisor at the time. It was rough. And so basically I traveled back. I was so upset. I really just shut down. I wasn't talking because I was like, this is so disrespectful to me and the work that I've, put into this. And I was like, and y'all didn't even have a conversation with me if you weren't going to approve this. I was so upset. Anyway, so I waited to the next day. I let myself cool down a little bit. I walked in and I said, so about my raise, I didn't get this raise that I was expecting. Can we talk about it? And my supervisor actually didn't know that the raise had gone through differently than what had been discussed. And that was really the first part of me setting a new boundary for myself, that I would not be underpaid for the type of value that I provide. And I am a strong believer that I provide a lot of value, right? I'm unapologetic about that. I know any organization that I move into or that I go to, they're going to get the very best of me and all that I can do. And typically those things have been very transformational, right? So I don't play about what I do. I'm very serious about my brand and how I show up. And so because of that, I'm also as equally as unapologetic now about me not being underpaid. And so people might be like, Mercedes, how is that a boundary? You didn't get paid or whatever. But the boundary that I set was I went back and had those conversations to let them know explicitly that I would not be willing to be underpaid for my work. And that's a boundary that I set, right? And often setting those boundaries are uncomfortable, right? There was nothing comfortable about this conversation. So let me know in the comments. Let me know, has something similar happened to you? Have you felt undervalued? Have you felt disrespected? And we're going to actually talk about what boundaries are and also some of the common language that you can use around creating these types of barriers. Because the conversation that I had was not the best of me professionally. It was very hard for me. It was a challenge. So I don't want you to leave this conversation feeling like boundaries are easy. They are not easy. They are very hard. But I also think that they are things that we need to put into place so that we can feel more comfortable about setting them. Okay. So let me know in the comments, and let me check because I'm trying to make sure my other socials are working well. This is my first cross-platform live stream. Thank you, Natasha. You yeah, girl, I had that happen. Okay, cool. It's going. Okay. Yes, I can't see LinkedIn user. I don't know what the settings. Sometimes the settings are oh, you can see stuff, and sometimes it's not. But yes. No yes, no conversation. You're just gonna update my paycheck, deny my case, and not say anything about it. I was so upset. Okay. Okay, so this is what I want to set about boundaries, right? Because I think this is important before you start to set boundaries if you've never done this before or you don't really know what good boundaries are. So I think the biggest misconception about boundaries is that you are controlling or telling people what they can do, right? Because people out in the world can do whatever they want to do. They do not have to respect your boundaries. They can move, act, and do whatever they want. There is no way that you can control somebody else. Well, I guess maybe there's illegal ways to do that. Let's not do illegal things. Let's do good legal things. Right. But essentially, right, you got to go into this saying, I'm not controlling the actions or the behaviors of other people. I'm letting them know how I expect them to show up to me, with me, in relation to me, right? So there are guidelines and there are rules, right, that you put into place about how you interact with others and based on how they interact with you, right? So it's about your actions. Also, boundaries are supposed to feel empowering, right? So if you I'm not saying the uncomfortable piece about setting boundaries is a challenge, but I'm saying like if you don't feel like they're putting you in a better space about what you want, then it's not really a boundary because it's not empowering that way. And so like so you know how you like you'll have the thing and you're like, oh, they were rude to me. I'm like, it's the silent treatment. And it's like usually like a significant other, a family member, a friend, or whatever, right? But we do this in the workplace. We're like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you because I definitely did that. I was like, I'm talking to my boss. I'm upset. And so a lot of the times we set these passive aggressive boundaries, which really don't allow us to get what we want, right? Like having the silent treatment doesn't get you anything, right? You're just uncomfortable. And really, you're probably the one waiting for them to try and come back and beg you to talk to them or whatever. It's like, no, people are not paying attention to you, right? Like set your boundary, be clear, which is the next part. You should set explicit boundaries, right? Now, explicit boundaries, it means that it's clear. It doesn't always mean that you have to speak them in the boundary that you set with yourself, right? So for instance, with my supervisor, I didn't go to them and say, I will never be underpaid ever again. You really pissed me off with the way that you just submitted my paycheck to me, whatever, right? I didn't say it like that, right? But it was clear to me. And because of that, I went and had the conversation that I needed to have so that that boundary could be respected, that I would not be working and be underpaid for my work. Okay? So think about it. One of the things that I find funny is people are always like, oh, how do you set those boundaries? Like my fiance was like, how did you do that so calm? Like I'm actually in no contact with one of my not my supervisor. I don't know why I said supervisors, one of my family members. And the last conversation that I had with that supervisor was, I'm really happy to, talk with you, but these are the things that I'm not willing to talk about with you. I'm not willing to talk about this, this, and this. If you are okay with not talking about those things, we can have conversations. We can go to lunch, we can do whatever you want to do, but these are the requirements about what I will speak about and what I won't speak about. And so I set those boundaries. The next conversation that I had with that family member, they brought all of the stuff up that I wasn't willing to speak about with them. And so I said, well, if you're not willing to have this conversation without these things, I'm just going to hang up the phone. I'm not going to speak with you. If you want to reconnect in the future under these circumstances, I will, right? But that's something that I'm letting them know what my boundary is, and I'm saying what I expect out of this relationship. But based on that, right, it's not actually their actions. It's me stepping away from the conversation that says like, hey, I'm out of this. Like, I'm not going to pick up your phone. I'm not going to respond to that text message. I'm going to hang up the phone. Okay. Because I've set my boundary, and my peace and how I want to experience the world is way, way more important than that. Okay. All right. So often people don't understand when they need to set their boundaries, right? And so I actually think that knowing when you are feeling like a boundary is broken is one of the most important times where you actually have to think about it. Like setting boundaries is a really introspective feeling because you have to understand how you feel. So I always think that if you have the feeling of resentment, that is a good sign that you either have not set a boundary, that your boundary is not clear, or that somebody has crossed your boundary, right? Because again, we can't control what other people do. And I feel like in the workplace, this often leads to us, right, being burnt out and being resentful that we're being burnt out, being passed over for promotions and being resentful that we were passed over, right? But we stay there. We stay there and we be resentful, okay? We're going to talk about the other part of that boundary, right, was people may not respect them. Like, what do you do then? What is the other side of that? Sometimes it means that we're shrinking, right? Because if somebody comes at us sideways in the workplace and we don't set a boundary that says, hey, you're not going to speak to me that way, that's disrespectful, then we shrink because then we don't want to trigger them, right? We don't want them to come at us and say, okay, well, I don't want to be attacked, right? So I'm going to shrink so that doesn't happen, right? And that, again, causes a lot of resentment. It also eats away at our confidence. And then the last one that comes up often is like the quiet quitting, right? It's like, oh, they don't respect me, they don't value me, they don't blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to show up to work with my best self, right? And I already told you one of my non-negotiables is showing up to work as my best self, right? My value is Black woman excellence, okay? Black excellence, okay? So nobody's ever going to. And now I've had a moment, right? We talk about that another day. All right, I've had a moment where I shrunk in the workplace, right? And I said, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never, ever going to do that again because it doesn't match up with my values. I also want to say, not going to call out names, but I just love in the comments, people saying like, okay, I have, parents that I can't seem to set boundaries with, or they don't work. And again, sometimes it's being introspective about what that boundary is, especially with the no contact, right? Because like for me, block. Block. I don't have to see you. We don't have to talk. Okay. Now I know my mom's in the comments somewhere being like, okay, girl, chill out, chill out. And she's part of it. She's seen me do that boundary. Okay. So I just want to just say like, yes, absolutely. Boundary setting is really hard, and it's a challenge, and it's an ever evolving kind of thing. Okay, so let me know if you felt like any of those things. Like, have you had times in the workplace where your boundaries were not met and you decided to quiet quit? You decided that, you were just going to kind of shrink, be resentful, or, kind of show up with a different attitude, right? Because that's not what we want. We want to enjoy the work. We want to enjoy others. We want to enjoy what we do. Like, this is the goal of setting boundaries, so we can show up like as ourselves, right? Like, have the hard conversation so that we can be ourselves. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go over a couple of the common scenarios that happen. And if you have any common scenarios that you have going on out there, like, let me know. I'd love to hear, like, when have you felt resentful recently at work? Like, I want to know. Like, let's get into it. Let's be a little messy. No, I mean, maybe not if you're on LinkedIn. You can say what you want, right? On TikTok, my fam over here on TikTok, go ahead and be messy. They don't know who you are. Okay, so let's talk through a couple of scenarios and the language. And I'm going to read because I just wanted to be really intentional about the language, because I feel like that's a lot of the hard parts that we have with this, is we don't have the right language to communicate the boundary that we have. Yes, Tiffany, yes. Let's break let's break the mindset, right? Because it is about freedom, right? It is about showing up who you are authentically, right? Okay, so this one comes up all the time. I have this all the time. My supervisor does not respect my time. My supervisor does not respect my time off. My supervisor doesn't respect that I leave work at 5. They're calling me, emailing me, whatever, at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, your supervisor can do whatever they want. Respectfully, your supervisor can do whatever they want, but what are you going to do, right? It's up to you to respond to an email. It's up to you to respond to a text message, and it's also up to you to communicate to your supervisor that that's not something that you anticipate to do, right? And a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, my supervisor expects that." Do they? Have you actually had a conversation with your supervisor about what they expect? And I've seen a lot of really, empathetic and great leaders that'll say, my work hours are not your work hours. I'm sending this because I'm working. You don't have to respond, right? But sometimes we don't actually have that conversation that's like, this is my expectations or not, right? And we take that on to feel like we have to respond in order to advance, in order to be seen as a team player. And then we're resentful for it, right? So that's the part, right? Because that means it's not really a boundary that you want to have, right? Like, okay, so this is something that I've done because, in all honesty, I have a really interesting boundary around this, where often I actually don't care if you contact me after the hours. If I'm not doing anything like that would take me away, that I'm not doing something, that's more important, or I'm not really trying to have, rest and relaxation time, I will respond to emails outside of work hours. But on the other hand, I expect flexibility. So if I have to leave early, or if I come in late, I like waking up at 9. Okay. So my supervisor doesn't care if I'm strolling in 30 minutes late. Okay. I don't care if you email me at 10 o'clock. That's how I'm set up. Right. And I'm a night owl. And so that doesn't really bother me, but you might be like, no, I have kids. I have a family. I have all these commitments. I'm not going to do that. Okay. And that means that's okay for you, right? So I'm saying this to say we don't all have the same expectations, right? But when I was setting recently a boundary around this, because I know that I'm typically available, I said something like, in the past, I know I've really been accessible during my time off, but for this vacation, I really am disconnecting. I won't have access to my emails, right? See, that was like, I won't have access to. It won't be like, do you mind if I don't respond, right? Like, set a really clear boundary. And this is, I think, a great way to really work on this if you haven't set those boundaries before, right? So set a softer boundary. So for this vacation, you don't know this now, it's going to be all the future vacations. For this vacation, I won't be available to answer or to respond, right, when I'm on PTO. or things like that, right? Or because of my work, my commitments outside of work, I won't be able to respond to these, right? And I can't remember. There was a dialogue that was like a couple years ago where people were like, oh, somebody said a no go. Somebody said, no, do not email me after hours on TikTok. It's okay, right? We all have different boundaries, right? So it's like, no, my time is my time. Leave me alone. And that's all good. Okay, so essentially, like that is one way that you could do that, and that you could set those boundaries around your work hours. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So there was kind of this, I don't know if it was like a full study, but it was just kind of like something that people noticed, that people who didn't have kids, people still expected them to work after hours. They're like, oh, you don't have another commitment or whatever. And so people are like, oh, well, I don't have an excuse not to work, so therefore I should just be available. And it's like, no, just set your boundaries. You have things to do. It doesn't matter. They don't know what you have to do, right? Like, you don't need a reason to set a boundary, okay? Just because you said so. Because you said so. Okay. All right. So who's gonna use that one at work in a little bit? Okay. So one mind, body, and soul on TikTok sounds like they might be using that. Okay. Okay. So the second one is supervisors taking credit for your ideas, right? So I've heard that so many times where it's like, oh, my supervisor will ask me for feedback. They'll ask me to, think tank something. They'll ask me to brainstorm something, and I share that with them. And then they take this and they present this to the leadership team, and I never get any recognition for that. This happens so much to Black women, especially when you consider like the workplace power dynamics that kind of occur when those types of things are happening. So this is, I think, a boundary for you, right? That if you're being asked to perform work or duties or things that really are kind of like your brain power, like it's not like, oh, I'm just filling out a spreadsheet, like it's your intellectual work or energy, right? You can say something like, you would love to present this to the team, right? You would love to present this to leadership. I have absolutely done that, okay? Like, it is okay. And I say this because like a lot of the idea, like I've been blessed to work with like some really great leaders. Thank you, Kiki. Thank you, like my personality. I'm just out here doing stuff. You're so sweet. But yeah, so like, I've had really amazing supervisors that really like elevated me, sponsored me, was an advocate, but I also had supervisors that really just didn't, and for the most part, I've had great supervisors. But I've also had a couple of supervisors who just didn't really empower my work, would kind of take my ideas or what I created and share that with others, right? And so then my goal in that dynamic was to make sure that I was in front of those leaders as much as I could when I could. And when I did, I made sure that I demonstrated like the impact that I would make or my own ideas independent of that person, right? So I was not sharing all of those ideas with my supervisor. So for instance, if we're in a meeting, we're trying to like think tank something, get some feedback, right? I would absolutely be like, oh, I'm so glad that you appreciate that recommendation. I would love to kind of set up this project and, present this to leadership. This is such an awesome project. I would love to lead this, right? And we often think that like our boundaries have to be super aggressive or because we're upset, right? Before we get to that resentful part, right? Like, just have a conversation about what you expect. And your expectation is that for the ideas that you come up with, you want to be recognized for them and you want to lead those things, right? And that's honestly what you need for a portfolio, for you to move into leadership, to grow, right? You absolutely need those skills and those types of work experiences to propel you forward. Okay. Let me know if anybody has a trifling supervisor. Hi, Tamara. Hey, girl. Hi. Sorry, if y'all see me look in different ways, it's because TikTok is over here and the camera is over here, but that's fine. Hello. Somebody's talking about they have a contract. TikTok is wild. See, you over TikTok, okay, they don't have a filter, right? Because their boss might not be lurking over there. Okay, they're just having a good time. I love that for them. But yeah, like I think that's cool to think about. Like, I have a contract with myself about what I'm going to do if somebody does this, right? And again, like, I really want to call out that, like, your supervisor can do what your supervisor is going to do. Your supervisor could be like, oh, I don't want you to do that project. That's okay. All right, cool. Well, I hope you have fun with my suggestion. Like, you won't be getting no more of me, right? So there's levels to this, right? But again, it's all about you. Okay. So this next one is that your supervisor assigns you unrelated work or asks you to take on somebody else's work, right? And I hear this happen a lot where people are like, oh, my supervisor came to me and asked me to do this project, but I don't have time. Like, if I were to accomplish this in 40 hours, or how much TikTok said how much time is contracted. Hey, other Tamara. Okay, we got multiple Tamaras on TikTok. I love that for me. I love my Tamaras. Okay, girls. Um, okay, so a lot of times this will happen, right? They come to you, they say, oh, we have this work, we got to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's all the urgency, right? And a lot of times it's like, this is not urgent. This is any other project, right? But you're about to make my day rough because you promised this to so and so or whoever, right? But often we have already set a work plan with them, right? We've had priorities, we've had check-ins or whatever. Now, I will say this, if you aren't having check-ins, if you don't have priorities from your supervisor, like have those conversations, okay? Because that's part where the boundaries come from. You never talk to your supervisor, no boundaries, they won't know. Like they could actually be unaware that they're pissing you off. They could also be unaware that they're asking unreasonable things for you in unreasonable periods of time, right? So if we kind of assume positive intent, we might find out something by having a conversation. Anyway, so based on this, like this would happen to me all the time. So especially when I was a recruiter, as a recruiter, all of your positions are important, right? Especially if you're doing high volume recruitment. And so I'd have like leaders, just COO, CEO, CFO. Hey, Natasha, thanks for coming. See you next time. It'll be recorded, so y'all can watch this later. But you have the CEO come into my office and be like, I need this hire, I need this hire, I need this hire. And I'd be like, oh, I have a prioritization list. I am only one person. I can only work so much. Y'all just denied my case. No, I'm just kidding. And so please help me to reprioritize this, right? So a statement would be, based on our current work plan, you've prioritized this. In order to meet those timelines, I won't be able to work on that, what you just gave me. Can we meet to reprioritize my work plan so that we can meet all of our goals, right? Because it's not fair to you, right? And the boundary is I'm not going to overwork myself for your emergency, right? It's not my emergency. Bye. Okay. So that's just a simple way, right? Asking for the support that you need to be successful. Thank you for all the likes, y'all. Also, I totally forgot to say this at the beginning. Like, if you're enjoying this and you're having a good time, make sure to share this with somebody else. Like, setting boundaries is a challenging thing. And also, I'm really trying to create this space for Black women to just come up and have our conversations that we need to have about growth, development, challenges that we're having. And so I really want this to be, oh, thank you for the hearts. But I really want this to be a community that we build here. So please share this with your sister in professional love that needs to be on this live. Okay. Okay, so the next one, this comes up a lot, lack of growth opportunities, right? So maybe you're somebody that wants to move into management, maybe you want another senior level position. What are some of the ways that you could actually have that conversation to advocate and ask for what you need, right? And often we see this happen because our supervisor does not take enough like targeted time to really talk to us and to understand what we need, right? They're busy sometimes. And also sometimes they don't want to see the growth, right? We just have some trash supervisors out there, right? That is what it is. Okay. And they don't take time to invest in you, right? And so while our supervisors should be having those conversations, while they should be talking about our growth and development, often they do not. So one thing about me, I'm always talking about growth. I'm always talking about growth. I'm always talking about what I want to experience, what I want to see, what I want to do next. Okay. If I'm not, be worried because I'm out of there soon. If I stop talking to you about growth and development, I'm exiting left. Wait, that was right. Left. Okay. Okay. So something that you could say is during my onboarding period, we discussed the desire for me to create a professional development plan so that I could grow into a supervisor. I would like to really discuss this during our upcoming check-in so that we can kind of create a plan for moving forward, right? And this is a goal, right? This is the boundary. I'm not going to do work without opportunities for growth, right? And that's how you set that boundary. Like my expectation is that we talk about my growth and development. Okay? Okay? Okay. Okay. Be loud. Be unapologetic. Say what you want. Say what you need. Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome to the live. Okay, so I am going to go over one scenario and then I'm going to talk about some of the risks of setting boundaries because I think it's important to know those as you're going into it. Not because I think it means you shouldn't set boundaries, but I just want you to be aware. So if there are any questions that you have while you're watching this live, go ahead and type them in the chat for me. If I miss them, just bring them back up to me. I can see all of the comments from LinkedIn and YouTube on my computer, but I can't see all of them from TikTok. So definitely let me know if you have any questions. All right. So this last one, which happens all the time, is that you have a rude or disrespectful supervisor. Let me tell you all the stories. I remember this one time, I had this like vice president, it was a vice president of sales. They called me up and they're like, well, we need to have 6 people here by Monday. And I was like, okay, well, you need 6 people here on Monday. But based on our work plan, you see where I'm going with this? Based on the work plan, we, allocated me to work on these 3 projects, right, for recruitment, right? And because you signed a contract with a customer and actually did not like per agreed upon contract restraints, you were not ever supposed to have this contract assigned. And so I'm happy to work on this for the next couple hours to get you as many bodies in place as I can for your project. Okay, there's no promises. You gave me less. You didn't even give me a work day. Okay, I can't get them there on Monday. It's Friday. And so I remember like he just was upset. He's like, well, this is an important contract and we need this customer and blah, 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 blah. And he's like going off on my phone. And I just was quiet. I didn't say anything. I was like, you can squirm in your disrespect. You can you can feel all of your actually white man tears. You can be as upset as you want to be, sir. I'll just let him sit in the silence because I'm not going to stoop to that level. And I said what I said. And like, I'm the only person that's going to do this, right? Everybody else is gone. Like, nobody's here. Okay. Christina's gone. And so after that, he like caught himself and he was like, oh, well, I shouldn't have said that like that. And thank you for whatever, how many ever people you're able to provide. I was like, okay, thank you. And I hung up the phone, right? Because that silence, there's actually so much power in silence. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like a lot of times when I'm having conversations and people are being disrespectful to me, I am going to allow the silence to speak for itself and that is inappropriate. So some of the best boundaries are you just, I'm gone. Bye. Erase. There's nothing to react to. I'm not here. Bye. Okay, no, but in all reality, I'm like, I mean, this is really what happened, right? And so I never had any of those types of engagements with him because I wasn't scrambling for him. I was setting my boundary. I knew I was firm in the expectations and what was expected of behavior related to recruitment at that organization. It was never going to happen. Okay, right? And I was unapologetic about that. I was a little feisty at like 22. I think I was like 22, 23. I'm 21. I don't know. I graduated early. Okay. So it's outside of this, right? Silence is golden. But also one of the things that I could have also said, like let's just say hypothetical like situation, right? So response when they are undermining your experience or making rude comments, you could say something like, I noticed in our last few team meetings that you stated that I wasn't capable of managing this project. In the future, I would like to discuss this privately with you so that we can make a plan forward for this project to be successful, right? So one of the things that I always like to do with boundaries, now there are a lot of people out there who'll be like, no is a no. I set my boundary, leave me alone, right? And no can be a no, right? If you're the like, I said no, I said what I said, totally fine. Let that be the way that you set boundaries, right? For me and the way that I like to set boundaries, and remember, this is empowering for you. You're the person to focus on when you're setting the boundaries. What do you want? So I want to explain them, right? And so I always try and talk about it from a positive way, right? So if you had a negative interaction with me, I want to talk about future state. I want to talk about how can we work together in a more effective way that allows me to be respected as well as you, and for us to ultimately get done what we need to get done, right? So we can make sure that this project is successful in the future, right? Like you can be positive. And then there's another way, like maybe let's say, right, Black women, we face so many microaggressions, backhanded comments, blatantly incorrect statements, judgments, bias, add to the list, right? We deal with it all. And so I think that's why it's even more important to be okay calling it out directly. And it doesn't have to mean that you do it in that moment, because often for me, I want to make sure that I heard what I heard and I want to address that. Now, you could be, if you like, I'm addressing it now. Go ahead and do that, right? Oh, I see a comment on here. So somebody asked about what a BA in sociology can do. I'm gonna come back to that because I'm a psych major, Jasmine. We're gonna come back to that at the end. Make sure I don't lose that. Is my mom a moderator on here? Pin that girl, pin it. No. Okay, so um, okay, I see a comment. Lauren, okay, comments are coming in. Y'all telling me to stop talking. Okay, so this often happens, right? So you can address it as it happens, or you can kind of wait, right? And so you could say something like, I found your comment about my work to be unprofessional. I'm always open to feedback, but I would appreciate receiving it in a constructive manner. How can we move forward with kind of shaping the way that you provide feedback to me, right? And I've shared that with people, right? I was like, and I've shared this with like my team, and I was like, hey, I'm an introspective person. I like to be self-aware, but I want to know if you're going to provide me feedback, because I want to be in the right space to receive the feedback, right? So whether it's in a check-in or a performance review type conversation, I have let everyone, well, after I learned that was about me, right? And it doesn't mean that I don't want feedback. It means I have to be in the right headspace, right? Because if you're in a negative headspace, that feedback is going to destroy you, right? You need that space, right? So it's okay to ask to be provided feedback in a different way. Hi, Lawrence, we have conversation. Lawrence has said, do you have a website? Do you work with mature individuals who have advanced his skill set? However, he is wanting to make he and his overall skill sets more marketable. Yes, I do, Lawrence, but you don't have to yell. Okay, you weren't yelling, but you don't have to be like, respond to my comment. So yes, you can go to my profile and you can schedule a call, or you can check out my profile about my resume skills. So you can go find that. But I saw your comment, Lawrence. I saw you, Lawrence. Mommy is a mom. Sorry, my mom's on TikTok Live. She is a moderator. Thank you for pinning that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this quick conversation, and then I'm going to talk about like some exciting things that I have, and then I'm going to start to answer questions, which is why I didn't already answer your question, Lawrence, but I promise I'm coming back. Okay. Oh, no, keep it pinned. I'm going to come back to it. Okay, so before we wrap up the conversation about boundary setting, right? I want you to know that your boundaries may not, and oftentimes as Black women, our boundaries are not respected. They are not received. People do not wish to change their behavior, right? And so sometimes that boundary means an exit, right? So in the story that I told at the beginning, I went back to my supervisor. We had that conversation, and I did receive my raise. On the other hand of that, I was so upset at how it had been handled from a leadership level that I wasn't willing to work there anymore, right? They had disrespected a really core boundary for me about professional respect and what I felt like I was owed in a conversation about the value that I provide. And so because of that, I decided to exit. I feel like so much of the challenges that we face as Black women when we're working is that people don't believe that we'll stand on business, right? They don't believe that I've lost connection. Let's see. Okay, hey y'all, sorry, I think I lost connection. You're okay. You're okay, Lawrence. It's like I'm on a roll, Lawrence. I gotta talk. I'm sorry, I just came back. Sorry about that. Oh, it only pins it for 60 seconds. Okay, well now I know. Sorry, mommy. Okay. All right. So what I was saying is employers think that if we set our boundaries and they don't listen, like whatever, right? But the fact is like so many of us are truly valuable, right? What I was doing for this organization, that was actually probably looking back at it, a very low amount to be requesting. And they just think, oh, they'll be fine. Like they'll be fine, right? But it's like it'll be fine until I'm not here anymore. That is the ultimate boundary, to exit, to not be there, right? To honor your values and what you want and how you want to experience your work and how you show up for work each day, that you choose to create something that's different for you. And I say this with like an abundance of privilege on my end of being able to be choosy, about having a great educational background, about having the work experience that I do. So I'm not trying to undermine that it may take time for you to make your exit, right? It may be uncomfortable having this because you don't feel like you have, um, a foundation, right? Something to fall back on, right? But I've always been very clear that I will be able to move on to whatever role that I need to when I need to, based on what's going on in my life, right? So that's the other piece of that. Like, it may not be respected, but you have to say, like, okay, I'm going to stand on business about my boundaries, right? This is what I'm going to do, and like commit to it, right? Because if you set a boundary about what you're going to do and you never do it, it's not a boundary, sis. Boundary. Okay, I dropped in the country. Okay. So, so the last thing that I would say is this: in the workplace, setting boundaries can be dangerous for Black women, right? Um, Setting boundaries often leads to our supervisors being uncomfortable with us setting those boundaries. Sometimes it leads to adverse actions, like people are then going to try and, write us up or terminate us or change our titles or whatever, right? I know for me and the value that I've provided, I have always felt safe to do that, but it might not be the case for you, right? You may not feel like you're really in a safe space to be able to set that boundary. And I want you to know that that's a possibility, right? And it's a reality that many Black women face in the workplace every day. And so I want you to just know that as you go forward, right? Just know that and make the decision based on you. And for me, I'm always gonna have that boundary, right? I'm always gonna ask to be respected, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right. Okay. So almost done. So before we go on to the Q&A and I tell you a little bit about like what I'm doing and my launch party and like how I'm inviting you to that, I want to know, like, have you set any of these boundaries? Has it been successful? And if not, like, you have some more boundaries to set after this call, like, let me know in the comments, what is a boundary that you want to set next week? We're going fast. Okay, we're doing it. Okay, what is a boundary that you want to set next week? I want to know. Let me know in the comments. Okay. So before you do that, you may see in this top corner, maybe over here based on where you're watching, right? I have a launch party. So I quit my job. I'm doing lots of big, big things. Okay, I'm doing big business girl things. I got my big business pants on and I quit my job. And because of that, I want to start building a community, a private community for Black women to start to work on some of the things that I've learned by sharing, right? So the tools, strategies, and the connections and everything that I've learned in this journey, right? Building a successful career, building a business outside of my 9 to 5, and truly building wealth so that I could make this exit, right? I know that the Black women in my community are really, really, really passionate about living into their purpose and their vision and what they want to see out of the world and the work that they do, and like genuine fulfillment. And honestly, I know that there's so much out there where we're like, I can't, like, I don't know how to pursue my passion. Like, this doesn't fit in corporate America, or I don't know how to pivot, right? Like, you can pivot to not only have a career that you truly love and that you're passionate about, but also have a business and also build the financial wealth that we need in this period, right? Because I think something that's so abundantly clear to me is that in this moment, we need the leverage that wealth provides for the Black community in the next 4 years. Okay. And I'm building wealth and I want you to come with me. So if this is interesting to you, you want to really join this type of community, you can either scan this QR code here to get signed up for my launch party so you can learn more, you can get engaged, or you can go to my website. So you go to mercedesswan.com/hello, and there's a wait list there. Also, if you look at, so if you're on TikTok, you go to my profile, you can sign up for the launch party there. Don't miss a Q&A, like do it after the call. If you're on LinkedIn, it's in the description, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile. And if you're on YouTube, it's also in the description. But you can go to hello, mercedesswan.com/hello to join me for the launch party. Okay? Okay. So now I am going to go to Q&A. So, Mommy, can you please put that comment, girl? If I got any other questions, let me know. Yes to my moderator, okay? 10 out of 10 moderator. I love you. I was like, I forgot I made her a moderator. Like, I need this. Okay, y'all scanning the QR code. Go ahead. Okay, so Lawrence, so Yeah, so I'm a career coach. One of the things, I'm also a newly business coach. But one of the things that I find is people come and they ask me, they're like, oh, Mercedes, like, do you work with this? Do you work with this person? Do you work with this person? And I like, honestly, as a recruiter, I did it all. I did technical recruitment. I did high volume recruitment. I did executive recruitment, like just, what is it called? Like entry level recruitment, like all of the above. And so, yes, I do work with mature individuals, people who are trying to make a career pivot, people who are trying to move into leadership, people who are trying to advance in their leadership, like they've already moved into management, but they're trying to move up. So, based on this, yes, Lawrence, you would be somebody that would fit my profile of who I work with. I'm going to try and paste in the comments like the link to schedule a call because I do really like to have a call to just kind of understand what you've got going on. I hope that it shows up, but if it not, I'm sorry. It looks like it says that it's only going to YouTube. So just check out my profile and you can schedule a call there. Okay. Oopsies. I'm sorry. I missed the pin comment, but I see it now. So it says, what can a BA in sociology do? Also has a master's degree needed to make good money. Okay. Thank you. I got it. I'm so sorry. And let me know if you have any other questions. Okay. So I am a psychology major and then I did a master's in management and then I moved into human resources. And so I think that sociology degrees, like often the reason that you pick a degree like sociology or psychology is because you have a passion for people in some way, shape, or form. So I would be looking for opportunities that allow you to interact with people or do things that positively impact people. So if you're like an introvert, you can still do things that support people, right? Like you could work in an administrative role in healthcare. You could work in a nonprofit. You could work in organizations that support the public, right? So there's a lot of different things. So it's like I'm taking this knowledge and understanding about how people behave and how they act, and I'm like using it to contribute good to the world, right? Which is how I got into human resources, right? So for me, I did my psychology degree. I actually ended up doing like a research lab. You're welcome, Lawrence. I did a research lab. And then I figured out I didn't really want to do like academic research. I wanted to do applied research. And so because I wanted to do applied research, I decided I wanted to go into industrial organizational psychology. Now, on the route there, I was like, oh, well, I'm not ready to start the PhD. I was going to graduate early. And so I did a master's in management, which had IO psychology coursework in it, with my goal to eventually apply to get more experience in a lab and then to eventually apply to a PhD program. In that master's program, I found human resources and I was like, PhD, I'll see you later. I will see you later. Now my goal is to eventually go back and get my PhD. All of that being said, I would say follow your passion, right? Like, would I have picked human resources when I originally picked psychology? No, but I knew that I loved psychology. I knew that I loved helping people. And then as I began to learn more and more about the different areas of psychology, I was like, oh my gosh, doing this in the workplace sounds so great, which is how I ended up being in human resources and then a coach, right? A career coach. And so my answer to you is like to follow your passion. How do you like to help people? How do you show up for people? What are the career paths that allow you to do that, right? Or adjacent, like again, if you're like an introvert, you're like, I don't want to talk to people all day, like that's an option too. And then do you need a master's degree? So, I mean, if you're going into, if you're saying, okay, I want to do like a research route, like whether that's applied or, more academic rigor research, like of course you probably want to go get like a higher level degree, like if it's going to be something in data or analytics or whatever, right? Like a master's degree is going to be helpful. I would honestly say that I'm not going to lie to you, I did a master's degree because I wasn't ready to graduate. Y'all can judge me, go ahead and judge me in the comments. All of that being said, like if you are in a place where you don't really need it, then I would say just go forth with your bachelor's degree. Like I actually got my HR internship before I finished my master's degree, so it's not at all required. Okay, sorry that was a little bit late and maybe a little bit of a roundabout, but I'm all about the passion. Okay, my name is a career love coach. Okay, and I really strongly believe that everybody should love their careers. Okay, any other questions? While I wait for potentially more questions to come in. Oh, I just realized you're on YouTube, Lawrence. I thought you were on LinkedIn this whole time. Okay. I don't see any other questions. So I will say that if you have joined this call and you're like, I really valued all that I learned today about setting boundaries, right? But you need some practice. You're a little bit rusty. Your supervisor might get upset with you with the way that you're going to tell those boundaries, and you can always schedule a call to kind of learn a little bit more about like what doing a like mock boundary session is, okay? Because there are definitely those. It happens all the time. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, I messed up my thing. It's okay. I don't know where it is. I'm trying to bring up the QR code. Oh, there it is. Here's the QR code if you want to schedule a chat. This is what happens if you don't remember how to use your system, okay? So if you want to schedule a call to kind of learn a little bit more about like, okay, how do I, navigate this? How do I set boundaries? Like get on my calendar, send me a DM, schedule a call here or here, wherever it is based on where you're watching, and we can discuss. So all of that being said, we're going to wrap up this live. I wasn't planning on doing it this long. I talk a lot. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe the next ones will be a little bit shorter. But either way, let me know if this really helped you. Let me know what you think about boundary setting. Do you feel a little bit more confident? Do you feel like you can take on the world? Okay. Do you feel like you can be unapologetically Black at work? Okay. Step into your Black woman bliss era. Okay. Your career love era. Okay. Wait, I got to stand up so you can see the, okay. In my career love boundary setting era. Okay. So let me know in the comments, like, what was your number one takeaway from this conversation? What do you feel like you learned? What do you think you'll take away? And again, what boundary will you set at work? This was really great. I'm going to go through the comments later. If I missed any comments, like let me know. But I just want to express so much gratitude for you all showing up for my first the clock out live stream. Like I'm so excited about this. I'm super excited to keep doing this. And also, thank you, Dr. Patton. You're so sweet. She said, congratulations on my launch. Thank you. I'm so excited. And I mean that really, like, I'm so blessed for each of you being in my community in some way, shape, or form, for showing up. And I also think that every time a Black woman shows up for herself at work, it creates space for other Black women to do that as well, right? We're setting the expectation that we're going to ask and receive what we deserve in the workplace. And like more of us coming into this community to do that is going to be great. Okay, so I'll see you at the next clock out. Remember to share this with your friend, share this with your sis in professional love, and I will see you all on Tuesday for the next one, because I actually already had scheduled calls on Monday and I forgot to block my calendar, which is a consistent thing that I do. So I will see you on Tuesday for the next clock out. It is there. Hi, Tiana. Happy New Year. Girl, I don't know if you just came here, but I'm about to leave. But it's okay. It's recorded. It'll be up there after it, does all this stuff. Okay. Oh, and the moderator should, what is about the moderator? What did my moderator do? I love my mom. She's the best moderator ever, but I have no idea what she's talking about over here on TikTok. All right, I'm rambling. I love y'all. I will see you next time. Join me for my launch party. Oops. Where is the, I keep missing the button. Here's the launch party, okay? Join me for the launch party. I can't wait to see you there. Okay. Bye. 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 Okay. I'm being awkward now. All right.